Hacksters! It's another week and another episode of my favorite show on our channel, which is Hackster Café. We get to talk to someone doing awesome stuff with electronics, and this week it is Dawn DuPriest, who is a longtime Hackster member who has published a number of projects, including ugly sweaters using technology, and the one that really caught my eye is Morusque. We're not sure how to say the name, but from the game Stray, and I'm so excited because I love this game and I love the character, and your interpretation is just awesome. So let's pull that up really quick. But first off, Dawn, how are you doing? What's up?
I'm doing great. I got done with my Monday at school. I came here to chat with you, and I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm flattered and honored.
It is our honor. So you've got a YouTube channel, but first off, I just want to show people the thing that I'm talking about because this is incredible. And this is not the only stray costume head that you've made, but I really want to start out just by asking you a little bit about this. So could you tell us a bit about the background, why you decided to build this, and maybe a bit about how you put it together?
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, the background goes back to like a previous Stray cosplay I did, and I guess like Halloween of 2022. I hadn't done an ugly Christmas sweater the Christmas before, and I was kind of dying to make something. And I had just played Stray the summer before, and oh my goodness, I loved that game. It was so cute, and the lore is so beautiful, and you get so emotional toward the end, and I loved everything about it, that whole experience. I actually hadn't played video games in years. And then I think I saw some things about Stray on the internet and thought I would play this video game. And it kind of got me back into gaming. I started playing a lot of games after I played Stray. So anyway, Halloween comes around and I was wondering to myself if I could make one of the robots from Stray. And I was kind of drawn to Momo. So I have the Momo head behind me. Um, as I was researching how to make Momo, I kind of came across like the cosplay community. And I had known that cosplay was when you dress up like a character and go to a convention. I didn't realize it could be like a full blown, all in art form, with like its own, tips and tricks that people share with each other and specialized materials and like all the money and time that people throw into making these elaborate costumes. And I just like wholeheartedly drank that Kool-Aid. I
Mm.
got into making cosplay. So Momo was a ton of fun to make. And but you can kind of see from him behind me, he's a little bit out of proportion. And I kind of became a member of a Stray Discord cosplayers server. And we're kind of chatting with each other and sort of like double daring each other to make a really realistic companion robot. There's Momo, yeah. And he was so much fun, and people are just enchanted with him when I wear him out. He's a colorful character, like with that rainbow face and the flamingo coat. And the I made the animations controlled with a gamepad. So when I hit different buttons on the gamepad, you get different facial expressions, and Momo talks. And
Ah.
there's little sound effects that go with it. But yeah, it was really hard to find a monitor that had exactly the same proportions as the robot in the game. And I looked all over Amazon and anywhere I could find monitors. It's difficult. So when I thought about like my next companion cosplay, Morusque has a rectangular face that's kind of the same proportions as an iPad. And so I
Mm.
got this notion maybe I could use an iPad as the face screen, and I'd just figure everything else out later. Like I'd figure out how to see, I'd figure out how to control it, but I'd use the iPad. So that's where that whole project got started. I couldn't believe I actually figured it out. That was not easy to pull off.
So the base for Morusque's face is an iPad?
It is. It's a
Wow.
really ancient iPad mini that so it's another part of the challenge
Oh.
was finding apps that would connect the iPad mini to the Raspberry Pi because it's very old and can't be updated to the most current OS. And yeah, that's Morusque from the game, the in-game shots. So I learned when you're making a cosplay, the first thing you do is you collect reference images from the game,
Mm.
and then you analyze the reference images, and you have to try to replicate it as best as you can in real life. I had one friend who was really generous and downloaded the Blender assets from the game. So he sent me those Blender assets, and that was really useful because I could recreate a 3D model of the head and then kind of scale everything up as it needed to be. So
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Do you know how they got access to the Blender assets of the game?
they described the process as ripping the files from the game. I guess
Wow,
I don't,
cool.
yeah, I'm sure if I looked it up, I could figure out how, but I didn't try.
Any other tips and tricks that you picked up along the way? Like, what really surprised you?
Well, seeing out of the head was devilishly hard.
Mm.
I ended up making, there's a periscope inside the head. You
Ha!
can see there's two slots in the bottom of the chin here. And I didn't include any of this in the Hackster write-up. I thought maybe it was like above and beyond what that project was calling for. But instead of pulling the periscope out of the head, I'm going to show you a picture of it in my build book. So if you enter a
Ooh.
cosplay contest, you have to create a little build book.
Oh.
And this is my Morusque build book. My cosplay name is Ender Mama Cosplay because that's also part of my Minecraft gamer tag. So I thought I'd use it as my cosplay name.
Mm.
And then this here, that's what the periscope looks like inside the head.
Wow.
So I downloaded it's like a VR headset frame or gasket. And then I made like a cardboard mock-up of the periscope and attached a little mirror tiles inside. And once I had the cardboard mock-up just right, I learned Fusion 360. And that was like my first Fusion 360 project. And I actually think the reason I didn't upload this to Hackster is I know it's a bad Fusion 360 project because it was the first one I ever did. And I was a little embarrassed about it. But it works and I could see kind of. I don't have any peripheral vision and walking is really hard.
Wow. So you're working with Fusion 360. How did you get started with your first CAD project?
My first CAD projects were done in TinkerCAD,
Oh yeah.
and I started because I'm a middle school technology teacher, and we used TinkerCAD to teach the kids 3D modeling, and so I had to learn 3D modeling to teach it to students. So we started off just by making little trinkets like keychains and nameplates and animals and things like that. But the more you learn about it, you can do some actual engineering with TinkerCAD. It's not a bad little web app. And we've made little that once you get started with it, the kids love doing engineering that helps other people. So we've made little solar lights and little solar phone banks, power banks, and we've donated them to the homeless and designed the cases for both of those in just TinkerCAD and then printed them on 3D printers.
That is so
Yeah,
cool.
the kids love it. It's a great little project to do with them. So yeah, that was how I got started. And yeah, I've been wanting to go into Fusion 360 and Blender for some time. I have not learned Blender yet, but getting started in Fusion 360 felt like a good step.
Yeah, what was your experience like switching from TinkerCAD to Fusion? Because I have had some similar experiences and I'm curious. What was it like for you?
Fusion 360 is a lot different. The way you interact with it and the way you interact with shapes in general it's a totally different paradigm. So I found some good YouTubers that explained the process really well, and I just did the best I could. But like I said, my first file is kind of bad because you make mistakes. You're following somebody on YouTube. I screwed a lot of things up and had to go back and redo. At least Fusion 360 lets you backtrack through your steps,
Yep.
and it's not just hitting Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. So yeah.
Yeah, other features that made it helpful for you to, like, switch to a more beefy platform?
Um, well, I don't know I don't remember what it's called. There's that window on the bottom of Fusion 360 where it shows like every step that you've done.
The timeline,
And
perhaps?
then you can click on an intermediate step and the change that you make like cascades through the rest of the design.
Mhm.
So like if I wanted to make the periscope like 2 centimeters taller, I could do that, but I didn't have to change everything else. I could just make it 2 centimeters taller, even though that was the step I did, like step 5 out of 20. So I loved that part of Fusion 360. That was really worthwhile.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Was that the timeline marker?
Mhm.
Yes, the timeline marker.
So good.
Yeah. So I loved that. That was beautiful.
So if you're going to redesign this project, what would you do again?
Oh man.
Or do differently?
I there's always like little things you're not 100% satisfied with. So but they're
Mhm.
little things. Like it's not anything really huge. Um I do wonder if there's a way. So I've got Morusque's guitar. It doesn't fit on the screen very well. It's a big beefy thing, right?
Ah.
I attached all the electronics to the back. I would have loved to find a way to hide these inside the guitar. I had this vision in my mind where I'd make like a little trap door that you could open and the
Ah.
electronics would be inside so they'd be totally hidden. But then I kind of chickened out because I was worried I'd need to like fix things on competition day and I didn't want to have to open up the whole guitar to fix things. So I just left them on the outside, but that would have been a really nice feature. And like, honestly, in hindsight, the things that broke on competition day, like I lost these little button caps because they were rubbing against my clothing. The little
Ugh.
power bank fell out like in the middle of, in the middle of the street, right in front of the Denver Convention Center. So putting them inside of the guitar might have been nice. So that would have been helpful. Um, there's like, the head has like a couple of little glitches in it that, a lot of people wouldn't notice, but I notice. I had to make a little power connector for the iPad kind of stick out the top of the face here.
Huh.
And the periscope is really hard to see out of. The overall whole costume is so bulky and so difficult to walk around in. I don't know if there's any way to make it easier to wear and easier to just feel like a human being in, but that's my chief complaint about it. When I wear it around, I just don't have a lot of mobility or vision or hearing. And so I need to really rely on a handler.
Yeah. Other tips for people doing cosplay competitions? Because you mentioned the sort of structure of the competition I wasn't aware about before. So, like, you
Yeah.
sent in demo photos and videos and also made this book for them?
Yeah, I mean, like cosplay is you can do cosplay without entering a competition. So it's a very personal art form. You can participate in it any way you want to participate in it. So there's no absolutely no pressure from anybody to participate in a competition. But I decided to do this because I really was proud of what I made. And I thought to myself, I may not make anything at this school again in a while. And so maybe I should compete with it. So I sent in an application. I don't know if all cosplay competitions have applications. Actually, I know they don't because I've entered a couple that don't. You just walk up and compete. But this one did because it's the biggest Comic-Con that Denver has.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I sent in an application to apply, and you really need to read the rules ahead of time. I think a lot of cosplayers in their advice videos would tell you like the main piece of advice to give you is read all the rules ahead of time. This
Right.
one was really clear about what the different divisions meant and that you had to have a build book. So I had to document my process of making this costume and write it all down and print it out in a book and put it all together and share that with the judges. There's also a judging interview for this one. So for 5 minutes, I kind of prepared a speech about the costume, and then the judges did a question and answer session with me about the process of creating it. That's a sustainability award.
Oh!
I thrifted large amounts of this costume. I thought it would kind of honor the spirit of this character to do a lot of thrifting because like if you played the game, these robots live in this abandoned I don't want to do spoilers. If you haven't played Stray, you might want to pause right here so you don't get spoilers. But the robots live in this abandoned walled city that's been the humans that lived in it went extinct hundreds of years ago. So they became sentient and they kind of created their looks from the left behind remnants of humans. And so I tried to scavenge as much as I could from the cosplay of left behind remnants of humans at thrift stores and such. And so they gave me a sustainability award for that. And I was just tickled for like my first big cosplay competition. That felt like a huge honor.
That is so cool. And what did you make the hair out of?
This is my husband's a biker, so we have old bike inner tubes. And then I went to the Habitat Restore and they had this material called backer rod, which is like a foam that you put inside sidewalk cracks when you're sealing them.
Huh.
So that made up most of the hair. I had to buy a little bit additional backer rod once I got started because I ran out. But it works. It's awesome. It's super lightweight. It's just a foam. And I
Cool.
stuffed the hair into the cracks of a bike helmet. So in the top here, it's kind of hard to see. This is the shell of an old bike helmet that we just had sitting around. So I stuffed the hair. And it's not held in with anything. It's just stuffed in and held in with friction, and then kind of wove the hair pieces together. And I tied it back with little cable ties because I kind of thought that is what they would use if they were, if it was real. They might use little cable
Totally.
ties.
I also use bike inner tubes for crafts. It's amazing. You can get it for free from some
Yeah.
bike shops. It doesn't fray. You can use it. It's so flexible, so durable. It's just really a wonderful material for building stuff out of. I'm actually working on a robot right now that has feathers that are made out of that stuff, and it's so easy to work with. I love that stuff.
That's a good pro tip.
Do you have any pro tips for cleaning out the inside? Because it often has like a powder on it.
I actually, for this project, I stuffed the insides with some old like pillow stuffing so that it wouldn't lay flat. It would plump up a bit. And
Right,
so
because you're not cutting it open. Right,
yeah,
right, right, right.
yeah,
Splendid.
but I don't know how to clean out that powder out of the inside. I noticed it got everywhere too.
It does. Uh, I'm still working on that one. I'll share it
Indeed.
someday with the world if I figure it out.
Good luck. Yeah, please do.
Okay, let's see. Any other cosplay creators, especially ones who are using technology, that have inspired you working on these?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, I think I kind of decided to take this leap because I was really inspired by cosplayers that use technology. I wish I could pull up the video for this one, but at the Denver Fan Expo, there was I love the Legend of Zelda series, and there was
Ooh,
somebody that did a Link cosplay with a light up Zonai shield, and it was just gorgeous. And I wish I'd had more time to like spend with them and talk with them about their light up shield. A lot of cosplayers use LEDs in just gorgeous ways. And there were several people at Fan Expo that I was just dazzled by what they could do with LEDs. And you've probably seen some too that are just outstanding and gorgeous. Um, yeah, I do have a bunch of cosplayers at this point that I follow on Instagram that use lights in really gorgeous ways. Kamui Cosplay is a
oh
YouTube channel
yeah.
that I mean, she's a phenomenal cosplayer, but also produces really great tutorial videos too. And I love the light displays that she puts in her work.
She's written some books as well as I think. She's just an amazing resource.
Yes, she's a great resource. Highly recommend Kamui Cosplay.
There
Yeah.
you go.
Yes, that's the one. I think that most people know who she is if they've done any work with cosplay, because like literally if you do a search for how to build this item, probably one of her videos will come up.
Yeah. So speaking of YouTube, you've got your own YouTube channel, and a lot of the things that you share on Shorts, like you mentioned, are sort of process videos. So you've got this one about your periscope,
That's the one about the
and
periscope. Yeah.
yeah, and then some of these are the videos that you shared for getting into the cosplay contest.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah,
So
I think and shorts is a really nice way to share like work in progress videos. People find them really engaging.
and they're lower pressure too, I think, rather than like this is a whole thing and I'm making a YouTube video about it. I don't know. I
Yeah,
mean,
100%.
I wish I could hear this, but so this is an actual functioning guitar that you made?
Do Would you like to see a demo?
Yes!
Okay.
Oh my
Yeah, so
gosh.
I did make the guitar, and this is like I'll back it up a little bit. It's big. But the guitar that Morusque plays in the video game is made of an old gas can. Sorry, I'm like mirrored, so this is hard. It's an old gas can with a guitar neck built it on. So I thrifted an old gas can, and somehow I got lucky enough to find on eBay this like damaged guitar that has exactly the same neck. So I bought this damaged guitar on eBay, and I ripped the neck off and bolted it to this old gas can. And the gas can's plastic, so it was easy to cut. It really wasn't bad at all, and just like attached it with some machine screws and glue, and then 3D printed the bridge and added some strings. So the controller for the head is back here, and the Raspberry Pi is running a virtual desktop, and the iPad is connecting to that virtual desktop. So it's a wireless connection between them. As long as they're on the same Wi-Fi, then you can have that desktop shared there. So when I was thinking about how to get Morusque to do the animations, one thing I thought of was Morusque has 8 different music sheets that you're supposed to collect in the game and then bring to them. And I wanted to be able to play all 8 songs, but I didn't want to add 8 buttons to my little circuit board back here. So instead of making 8 buttons, I added an RFID card reader. And at my school, we had these old like hotel key cards that we kind of saved for who knows what project, and then we didn't use them. So I poached a bunch of those from school and then programmed them, and I laminated them into these little pieces of sheet music.
Ah!
So then you can take one of the pieces of sheet music, and like I had this vision that I would be at a con and I'd just be sitting in a corner just like Morusque, and I'd have sheet music sitting near me, and people could pick a piece of sheet music and I would just tap it on my guitar. Let me see if I can do this while I'm mirrored. Can you
Wow.
hear it? I don't know if you can.
Yeah, we can hear that.
Yeah. So I'll pause it. Yeah. And then there's a cancel button on the back in case I don't want to hear the whole song. So that is so much fun to work on. I just had a great time with it. The coding was not hard. There's a simple like RFID library that you can download off of GitHub. I think I tried to credit the author in my Hackster project, but it works great, and it made that part a lot of fun. And then of course on convention day, one of the wires on my circuit board got caught on something and broke. And so the RFID card reader wouldn't work on convention day. So like the push buttons kept working and I was really grateful, but I was very sad that I couldn't get the RFID reader to work when I really needed it to.
Alas, this is such a
Yeah.
classic thing to happen, though.
Right?
I've seen people whose specific thing at conventions is to be sort of a cosplay medic. I think one person goes by cosplay medic, and that's their whole thing, is that they bring like a bunch of repair supplies and they help people out if their stuff is broken,
We
because
actually
it's
had
a
one.
given.
It's so great. Like if anybody's ever not doing a cosplay at a competition and you have it in you to be a cosplay medic, it's so valuable. There was a station like that in Denver. There was a cosplay medic station run by the Colorado Academy of Cosplay, and I went there and they had a soldering iron, and I tried to resolder my board, but it was beyond hope.
Oh,
I broke it too badly. I was able to fix it again later.
uh,
It was really sweet of them to help and try. And they had everything. They had like hot glue and duct tape, and duct tape ended up being the biggest supply I needed was duct tape. When you're wearing a cosplay at a convention for the first time, it really starts to show all the parts of your costume that are just like slightly janky. And so at the tops of my shoes fell off, the power bank fell out of my guitar. I lost an aux cord from the speaker. Button caps from my guitar fell off. Like I was a disaster. By the time I finally showed up to my photo shoot, I had to delay my photo shoot by 20 minutes just to put duct tape on everything and put it back together.
naturally. Oh, wow. Yeah. But
It'll happen. So yeah. And they say you should test your costume before you go to the con. And I tested it just by, walking around my own house, but it's really different when you're walking from the hotel to the convention center. So
absolutely, and I had a question for you with that as well. So often something that will happen is when people take something that they've made at home, and it has a wireless connection involved in it, and they go to like a place where that's heavily saturated in the wireless frequencies,
Mhm.
you'll end up having issues with the Wi-Fi. And I'm
Yeah,
wondering, with your virtual desktop connection, did you experience any issues with that?
I was extremely fortunate. So I connect both the Raspberry Pi and the iPad to a hotspot on my phone,
Mm,
and it just worked. Like it
that's
was
the way.
just seamless. I was so lucky. But I did have a backup plan, and you always should have a backup plan in case there are Wi-Fi issues. So I had a lot of Morusque's face animations saved as photos on the iPad. And I thought if worst comes to worst, I'll just open up the Photos app and then just like play the videos, and I can swipe when I want to switch to a new animation. Um,
Brilliant.
yeah, it wasn't perfect, but I thought if all else fails, I've got that as a plan D, E, F. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, like we were just talking about, it's inevitable that some stuff will break, so just having so many backup plans is.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
So let's look a little bit at your background. I want to talk about the sweaters as well in a bit, but first, a little bit about where you're coming from and how much this affects what you're doing today. So previously, you've been a software engineer at Hewlett Packard and a software and application engineer at Agilent.
Mhm.
And could you tell us a bit how you moved through software, got into software, then like pivoted into education, and how that sort of story has gone for you?
Yeah. I can tell you, I think when you're born to be a teacher, you kind of know. Like it's sorry, I've got a dog barking in the background. It's definitely a calling. And when I went to university to begin with, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna like date myself, but this was in the early '90s when I went to university. I kind of had in my head like I could do engineering, or maybe I want to be a math teacher. And I ended up going the engineering route, and I don't have any regrets about doing that career first. But when things started to get difficult in engineering, I really felt education tugging at me again. And things did get kind of difficult in engineering. I think it was in the like early 2000s. People who were like a lot younger than me wouldn't remember, but we used to manufacture a ton of stuff in the United States. And then, really suddenly, at the end of the 90s and the early 2000s, manufacturing started moving overseas. It was this huge shift in the way that we did tech business. And when all that manufacturing started moving overseas, it just had ripple effects through the whole industry. And we had like the .com bust in the early 2000s. So that can be really demoralizing to stay at a company through really difficult times like that. And I think that when I thought about what I really wanted to do with my life, and I thought about going into teaching and working with young people, that sounded a lot more joyful than sticking it out through those rough times. So I was lucky to get a severance package And that severance package helped to pay for going back to school and getting a teaching certificate and a master's degree in education.
Amazing. Is there any advice you'd give people who are also seeking to transition from like a software type role or engineering into education?
Um, I have heard people that are like disillusioned with, you know, the rat race say that they're like really tired of the rat race, and so they're thinking about getting out into teaching just to get away from the rat race. And I would really challenge them to think about education has a lot of its own issues. It's not the escape that a lot of people think it is.
Mm.
So you're going to run into a lot of the same discouraging things that plague the business world. Get into it if you love working with young people and you love the art of teaching and learning, and that fills you up. But I would challenge you not to get into it just as an escape from what's bothering you right now. You won't find that escape.
Legit.
Yeah.
Real talk. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. It's difficult. There's paperwork. There are difficult personalities. There's a different management fad every year. There's different measures of accountability that you have no control over. There's the same messes that are in the corporate world are in education too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So one thing that I've heard about from having parents who are professors, teachers, is the frustration when sometimes administration can get really excited about new technologies that could be used in the classroom. And I'm
Yeah.
curious, since you're sort of both of these, technologist and teacher, how you feel about, what makes a technology successful and useful? What do people need to look at before they think about bringing something into the classroom, especially mandating it? And
Gosh, that is a good question. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think of. I've been really fortunate, I think, to not have too many technology mandates in our school. I mean, the one that stands out is in like 2011, 2012, we started making the move toward one-to-one computers. Before 2011, 2012, you may have like a cart that you could check out from the media center for your classroom. And then it really started moving toward like every kid has a computer in every class, and then every kid was taking a computer home. And so, I mean, that shift was gradual, but it was definitely mandated. Like there was no escaping it. It was an inexorable push. And that overall, I think like for all of its challenges, it's been positive. I really think that it's opened up a lot of access to materials that we never could have dreamed of. And a lot of opportunities to do really cool, creative things with, one-to-one computers. So that one's been really good. And I also get like really sad for teachers that end up with a mandated piece of technology in their classroom that's difficult to use and ends up like not being very good after a year or two. And I don't know if there's any easy way to predict which ones are going to fall into which bucket, right?
mm,
Which ones are going to be the big paradigm shift that really is a game changer for you and your craft and the student's ability to learn, and which ones are going to be just like a flash in the pan. It'll be dead in a couple of years and you wasted a lot of money on it.
yeah. What kind
Yeah.
of things do you think people can do to support teachers? Because I feel like sometimes that might be an issue. Is just like, here's a thing, and not like any
Yeah.
lesson plans or how do
Well,
you?
it's this is not possible and it's not feasible. But teachers teach. If we have an 8-hour day, we teach like 7 of them. And really, if we're going to have time to like polish our skills and also do the other things that are involved in teaching, like grading work and giving feedback and communicating with people and planning our lessons, we need more planning time.
Mm.
You just need more time. And nobody gives teachers more time. There's no place in the world that does it. But really, if we're going to up our game, that's what we need. There are some countries where if teachers teach for 4 hours, they have 4 hours of planning time. We're not one of them,
Mm.
but that's what we need.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That is something that I consistently hear.
Yeah.
It's so real. So the BBC microbit, for example, was designed for use in a classroom, and I'm curious if you've seen, this or Adafruit Circuit Playground Express or any other tech that you think would be especially well suited to the types of stuff that you're teaching. Like, I'm not
Yes.
sure what grade levels you're at, but
I teach, so right now, I'm at a tiny charter school and it's a 6 through 12 school. So I spend my mornings teaching middle school math, and then I spend my afternoons in our project block.
mm,
So I teach high schoolers right now, but I'll teach middle schoolers next semester. And I love microbits, and I'm so glad you brought it up. I have not played around with Circuit Playground Express very much. But I got access to a class set of microbits a few years back, and I love those things. And I kind of got into those because the BBC Microbit used to run an annual competition called the Do Your Bit Challenge. And it's such an engaging way to get kids into coding. And they loved the Do Your Bit Challenge because it invited kids to invent something that would make the world a better place and then share it in the
Oh.
form of like a short video and a little like essay about it. It was such like a good, authentic, real world project, and kids just ate it up. That's it, the Do Your Bit Challenge. I actually had a couple of students over the years that won this Do Your Bit Challenge,
Oh
and
wow.
it's not a competition anymore. It's just um, a social media campaign now. But it's still delightful, and I love microbits, and I even use them with high schoolers from time to time because of all the cool features they have and how easy they are to code. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love them. They're great for technology classes. They're great for math classes. I'm working with a physics teacher at my school right now that wants to use them in a physics class to measure acceleration. So yeah.
There's a lot of conversation going on in the tech world as well right now about I believe these are the goals they're talking about, the
Yeah.
UN Sustainable Development Goals, and I guess they're just calling them the global goals now, um, maybe both. But yeah, these are a huge part of the conversation about sustainability, about how we make the world better in the tech space right now, and I love that they're bringing this into the classroom as well with this Do Your Bit challenge. That's so
Yeah,
cool.
100%. Yeah.
What kinds of projects did your students make that did well in the competition?
They've they made some really cool stuff over the years. I think the kid that won I had two students that won in two different age groups like 2 years ago, and one of them made a little like communications like app where the teacher would have one microbit at their desk, and then students that maybe needed extra help could have microbits at their desk, and
Oh,
then they could use the microbits to communicate with their teacher about what help they needed, so that way they didn't have to feel shy about raising their hand. And I had another group of students that were kind of like inspired by the rough wildfire season that we had a few years ago. And they made a fire detector app that would like detect if the conditions were right for a fire or if there was a fire nearby. And then it would send communication to whoever was holding the like sister microbit to let them know that there was a risk of fire.
that
Yeah,
is so cool.
amazing. They were really great. They were really awesome ideas, and the kids executed them and presented them really well.
Awesome. So, I would love to ask you at this point about your holiday sweaters and all the
Yeah.
cool stuff that you've done with those because you've been doing these, did you say since 2014 or?
The first one I made was in 2014. Yeah. And it's not published here. It's really bad.
That's the idea, isn't it?
Right?
So I especially was interested in this tweetable holiday hoodie of community, the frivolousness, and it kind of gives people like a license to explore. Uh,
Right. Right. And I think the frivolousness was the thing with this one. The hoodie is like extremely tacky. And it was just like a Target hoodie that was shaped like a Christmas tree. I it was yeah. But I think I can't remember where I got the inspiration for this. I saw a post somewhere about a woman who made a wedding dress. That's it. A wedding dress that you could tweet at and it would change colors. And I thought that was really sweet. And you know, 2020 was such a weird year. And I knew that at the time my school was remote for like the entire I think it was remote for most of the fall, and I knew we were going to be remote at the beginning of the winter, but I was kind of hoping that would change, later on. Then anyway, I didn't have anybody to share my sweater with that year. It was just me in my basement. So, I kind of decided to see if I could make a tweetable one, and then maybe I could like take videos of people tweeting at my hoodie, and then they like would be a little bit more like sharing it in person. And I'm not sure that anybody ever actually tweeted at it, but the idea is a really fun one. Um, I had a good time making it. I love these. That's an Adafruit NeoPixel like fairy light string.
Mm.
And I love those little fairy lights, and I would totally use them again. They're awesome for wearables. I wish on top of the sweater, I don't think it's as nice of an effect, but those would look really gorgeous underneath like a tulle skirt or something.
Oh,
They're
for
so
sure.
pretty.
What was it like working with these?
I think that the one thing you need to be careful of is that the wires just have a light coating of enamel on them.
Mm.
And that they're not like heat shrunk in any plastic or silicone or anything like that. So you need to be really careful not to scratch them or they might short out. And from what I remember, the like wires on the little pigtail are like switched from what you would expect. So I remember having to get help from the Adafruit forums about why my lights weren't working.
Ah, yes, that's something you always have to check. It like
Uh-huh.
with yeah, that and working with third-party ones as well. There's a lot of like NeoPixel alikes on the internet, and you always have
Yeah,
to check like is the ground in the middle or the data or the power.
yeah.
Yeah.
People on the Adafruit forum are super nice. They were very kind about responding to my queries. It took a few tries before I finally got them working.
Ah,
Yeah.
what's it like working with Adafruit IO? I've always meant to check that out, but
Oh gosh, I'm trying to. It was long ago enough ago. I'm trying to remember. Um, I the one thing I remember about the like I think I worked with Adafruit IO and then IFTTT. I don't
if
remember
this
how
and
many
that,
T.
yeah.
If this then that.
Yeah.
Um, and the whole like interface I found like really laggy. Like from the time you tweeted something to the time it actually arrived at the sweater was minutes, if it happened at
Mm.
all. So it may have been because I was too stingy to get a paid account on anything and I was doing the free accounts. The Adafruit end was pretty easy. It was, and I kind of enjoyed working with it. It was really my first foray into anything that was like Internet of Things. So that end wasn't too bad, but like connecting IFTTT with the Adafruit IO, the whole process was kind of difficult.
Yeah, I really gotta check this out, but, for
Yeah.
those who are unaware, Adafruit IO is sort of like a data transmission gathering, you can sort of
Yeah.
look at dashboards with it, you can transmit it between devices and stuff.
Yeah. 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 And it looks like there is a paid account on that one too. If you're doing a project that you actually care about, I think I'd recommend doing the paid account.
Yeah,
But mine
legit.
was just a hobby thing for me, so I did the free.
So you mentioned in this tutorial that you printed a little 3D printed caddy that goes in the pocket where you
Yeah,
put the electronics, which I think is really clever, and, what kind of 3D printer do you like to use? What kind of filament do you like to use? I'm just always curious about these things.
yeah. So I've got it next to me, but it's kind of hard to see. I've had so by now they're super old, but I have Lulzbot Mini Twos,
Ah,
and we've had them for like 5 or 6 years. They're actually our school 3D printers. So every once in a while, I bring the school 3D printer home to work on a little project. I consider it just a perk of being the tech teacher. So there's that. And we generally just work with PLA filament. And I've got to say, these Lulzbot Mini 2s have generally just been really reliable little workhorses. For somebody who was really a novice to 3D printing, I valued that I could open up the software, I could put my 3D model in it, I could push print, and it would print it. Um,
nice.
and I had to do very little thinking about like how the whole thing worked. In the years since then, so these are like 6 years old by now, these 3D printers are. I think the one thing that I would tell people is that the hot end starts to need more and more heat in order to work properly. So by now I
Ah.
have to crank the heat up way beyond what the actual spec is for the filament. Otherwise it clogs. And we probably need to replace the hot end.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Speaking of replacing parts and stuff, when you take your costume out into the wild, is there anything specific you put in your on-the-go repair kit?
Yes. Duct tape.
Right.
Duct tape is huge. Like I would not have been able to make it through that competition without lots of duct tape. So that was really helpful. And some of it depends on like what your cosplay is made of. There were some things I packed that I didn't use, but I might have, like a needle and thread, various glues. I did pack a little hot glue gun and some hot glue just for like quick repairs. But honestly, the duct tape works just about better than anything. Um, I there were some replacement parts I wish I had packed. In the end, one of the things that failed was like the RFID reader itself, and it might have failed as I was soldering other parts, and I didn't think about packing an extra one of those. It's the things that you don't anticipate needing to replace that are going to end up failing.
Absolutely, the umbrella
Yeah,
problem.
and have a plan B and a plan C just in case like all else fails and things don't work. And I'm trying to think what else I put in there. I think I added some things that I didn't end up needing, but like the duct tape and the hot glue are really huge. Make sure you've got those. Needle and thread if you have things are sewn. Yeah.
Awesome.
Zip
Uh,
ties. I can't remember what else. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, if you had infinite time and resources and money and space and all that good stuff,
Yeah.
is there something that you'd love to build? You've just been either something that you really want to build and you've been putting off, or something that's just like totally blue sky?
That's interesting. Now that I have kind of found that I sort of enjoy cosplay, I've had my eye on another cosplay project. And one of the things I was thinking about was over the summer, I got to play The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
I totally enjoyed that game. My family was horrified that I think in 10 days I racked up 60 hours. And this was while it was during the school year. I was teaching full time. And then I'd come home and I'd play The Legend of Zelda. And so, yeah, I was playing like 6 hours a day while I was working full time.
Wow.
Um, it was not good for my sleep, but it's a great game. And in this game, there's this armor set that Link wears called the Frostbite set, which is so pretty, and it looks just like Elsa from Frozen. It's got
Ah,
these glowing snowflakes all over it, and these glowing dragon horns on the top. And I think that's like the next thing I'd like to build. I don't know if I have the skills to be able to pull it off. That's the Frostbite armor. Isn't it pretty?
so pretty.
Yeah. And that's it when it's not, it's when you go into cold weather, there's snowflakes on it that light up this brilliant cyan. So,
Ooh.
that's there. It's not nice.
That's really nice.
Yeah. Um, I've already started purchasing some of the materials that I might like to make that costume out of, but that's going to challenge me.
Ha ha ha. It's such a trap. It's such a great trap. I love
Yeah.
this, the starting part of a project where you're like, and starting to like pull things together.
Uh-huh.
That's so cool. You
Yeah.
used a couple of cool things in your previous cosplay that I hadn't seen before, like this Spark Fun Pie Wedge, I think is
Yeah.
really cool. Do you think you would use this again?
I would. Yeah, it's makes it really easy to breadboard a Raspberry Pi project. So I found that super helpful. And I've soldered my existing Pi Wedge completely to my breadboard. So I'd probably need to get a new one for my next Raspberry Pi project. But I found that very helpful.
Are there any other tools that you didn't use but you might look at for a future cosplay?
Ooh, that's a good question. That's a good question. I'll come
Mm.
back to that one. The Raspberry Pi I used, I poached from school because we had the set of Raspberry Pi 3s, and then we bought a new set of Raspberry Pi 4s. So I
Mm.
thought I would just use the old one in my Morusque project, but I did kind of wonder if the Raspberry Pi 4 might have some features that I would enjoy.
Yeah. Is
Yeah.
there a process or skill that you'd like to learn next that you think would level up your game?
Um, a lot of them are like related to cosplay. So I've watched some videos of people that use thermoplastics for different pieces of their cosplay, and I'm really intrigued by that. And resin 3D printing. I don't know how I get access to a resin 3D printer, but resin 3D prints look so nice and so polished, and they don't have that like rough texture that the filament 3D printers have. So
Yeah.
that would be a really fun thing to level up. And I'm a little self-conscious about my foam smithing. This head is made from EVA foam, like 5 millimeter EVA foam, and
Is that like Warbler?
it's not exactly the same thing as Warble. Warble is thermoplastic.
Oh,
So,
okay, yeah.
mhm. Yeah, EVA foam is its own like
Mhm.
genre of crafting. I find it like it's easy to put together, but it's hard to put together really well and really polished. So my legs, I think I went through 3 iterations of leg armor before I came up with something that I was semi-satisfied with, and I'd still like to make it look nicer.
How do
Yeah,
you make your electronics and your other parts durable and comfortable? Those are two things that we always worry about with wearables.
indeed. Yeah. Good. That is a really good question. The head, for all its flaws, is reasonably comfortable to wear. And I have like a bunch of like, oh, you can't even see it. The head's it's so hollow inside. There's the shell
Huh.
of that old bike helmet and like the little tightener mechanism for the bike helmet, and then a bunch of like acoustic soundproofing foam inside. And that would help a ton. So it is fairly comfortable to wear. It's a little bit hard to see out of it, but I can wear it around no problem. It's not even super hot, which is lovely.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah. I think for other parts of costumes, and like master cosplayers are going to know this stuff way better than I will. But like I noticed with leg and foot armor, for example, You kind of need to do several iterations because I wasn't always the best at picturing where my joints were going to rub against the foam. So like the
Mm.
ankles and the knees, and even like the places where my toes would hit the street or whatever. So it wasn't so much about, some of it was about comfort with those pieces of foam or rubbing up against each other as you're bending your joints. That's not super comfortable to wear, but it's also the durability of the costume. So yeah, just be ready to take the X-Acto knife to it over and over again until you've got it so it fits just right.
Yeah, legit. Tell us about the first ugly sweater that you built, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, the first one that I made was in 20, what did I say, 2014? It was
Mhm.
2014. Um, I think the year before there was a representative from SparkFun that came to my middle school and they gave a little demo of their SparkFun Inventors kits.
Oh.
And I'm sure they did this because SparkFun is a neighbor of ours. They're in Boulder and I'm just a little bit outside of Boulder. So they, did a tour of some local schools and showed them SparkFun Inventors kits, and we bought like a small set of them. And I was enchanted. For as like all my time as a software engineer, I really hadn't done that much hardware engineering, and I couldn't believe what I was missing out on. So the following year, we inherited a set of like big lily pads. And I don't know if they even make those anymore. It's like a really big round purple disc with a bunch of like solder pads around the outside,
Mhm.
and it has the same pins as a fully functioning Arduino, just like round and wearable. So nobody was using them in any classes, and so that's it. Oh my gosh, they still make them. Look at that. Yeah, I put one into a sweater and was just like, I'll just play around with it and see if I can get it to light up. I have like a little video of it if you want to see it. It's not good, but your first project never is, right? So this is my first ugly Christmas sweater from 2014. It was like this shirt that I got at a thrift store, and I just sewed a few LEDs in it and programmed that little lily pad Arduino. You're going to be completely underwhelmed. Are you ready?
Okay.
Okay, wait for it.
I'm
Yes, you
so
can tell.
underwhelmed. It's
Thank you.
amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. It lights up. And yes, so I was proud of that sweater. But it did kind of start me on a journey, right? From that very first Christmas shirt. I in over the next few years, I decided to get fancier with it. At the time, I was teaching like a little middle school computer science class, and I have another one I can bring up too. This one cracked me up. The following year, I figured out how to add a piezo buzzer to a project like that. So I added a piezo buzzer and a few more lights, and I kind of taught my students how to program tones on the piezo buzzer to synchronize with the lights. And I think the song that came out that year around Christmas was Hotline Bling by Drake.
Ah!
And so one of the kids was like, "Don't make it do Jingle Bells, make it do Hotline Bling." And I said, "Challenge accepted. We're going to do Hotline Bling." The sound is really faint. I hope you can hear it. If it doesn't, it's okay. You missed the beepy boopy hotline bling. Yeah, I worked with those little piezo buzzers and just little LEDs for a couple of years, I think. And then it was in 2017 that I decided to incorporate NeoPixels and a little MP3 player. And there's a LilyPad MP3 player that I think is still the best little like MP3 player out there. I've done a couple of projects without it since then. I think if I have the opportunity, I'm going to go back and get another LilyPad MP3 player. It's so good, and it's really powerful, and I've really enjoyed working with it. Yeah, that's it right there. It's a little
Nice.
bit pricey. It's so nice. It works so well.
But yeah, part of the deal with these lily pad devices, of course, is that they're designed to be for wearables, which is probably why they've got the things radiating off like this. They've got,
Yeah.
you can alligator clip to them, you can put conductive thread and sew to them, you can wire to them and solder on, all good stuff.
Yeah, and most of my projects have a little mix. I'll solder to them sometimes, and I'll do the conductive thread sometimes, and I'll use the alligator clips for prototyping. So they're really versatile in that way. And you can see it's got it has, if you connect it to its own dedicated lipo battery, it's got plenty of juice to make good quality sound from whatever speaker you connect it to. And I've gotten like decent sound even from like the tiny little like quarter size speakers that you can buy on SparkFun.
Wow, nice.
So yeah, it's a really good quality product. I really like it. I've worked with the Feather MP3 player from Adafruit, and I like it as well. My only complaint with the feathers is they have like a lot less storage than the flora that I had used in previous projects, and so I can't program as long a song as I would like to. So,
Uh-huh.
so yeah, I like the flora and the lily pad MP3 combination. I might do that again for this year's sweater.
Good to know. So when you're building stuff, whether it's cosplay or ugly sweaters or whatever, or a candy tube that allows you to disperse candy
Yeah.
socially distantly,
Yeah.
what's your favorite part of your workflow when you're building?
um, Gosh, the shopping. Is that bad? When you start like thinking about what this project is going to involve and you purchase the parts and then you're just waiting by your mailbox for them to come in so you can get started. That's really delightful. Um, the whole process has its own joy. We all know, I know every time you're going to hit a point where you quit making progress, where you run into a problem, you've like plateaued, you can't get past this issue, or you can, but it's just a grind. So I can't ever predict when that is actually going to happen in a project, but I always know it's coming. But once you get either like right before that point or right after that point, when the work really flows, you're typing in the code and you're testing things and you really love how the project is turning out. Or even like at the end when you're adding the little decorations and the embellishments that just make it look cute.
Mm,
Yeah, it's a joyful process all around. It's a fun hobby. You have to have a hobby when you work a long, stressful job. So
absolutely.
I recommend it. And I always like when I get when I get to teach classes that kind of fuse my hobbies and my job together. That's really fun.
Well, I hope you get to do more of that in the future.
Yeah.
We're getting close to the end of our chat here, and I'd like to make sure that people know where to follow you and check out more of your work. So we've got at DuPriest Math on YouTube. We've got DuPriest Math also on Twitter/X, and Dawn DuPriest on Hackster.io. Are there any other places where people can look to keep up with your activities?
Oh, I think those are the main ones. I think you hit them. I have an Instagram, and my Instagram is at endermama.cosplay. That's like my old cosplay Instagram. I feel like I want to make sure I honor my students in telling you this. This year, I got the privilege. I'm so excited. I'm teaching a cosplay class at my school. So my high school
Ah,
venture this quarter, I'm doing a class that's a combination of coding in Python and cosplay design and execution. And we're going to put on our own Comic Con at the end of the quarter. So there's like a bunch of my cosplay projects and like you can see at the top, my daughter decided she wanted to cosplay, so we made a Barbie cosplay for her, and that's us seeing the Barbenheimer show at the drive-in.
that's great. Awesome. Oh man, I would love to see how someone like augmented that with tech. And okay, I saw a few of these pictures that you posted. Is this you interpolated into the game? Is that
Yes, the photographer.
ah?
I had a photographer that took pictures of me at Fan Expo, and then they did an immersive edit where they changed the background of the photo shoot. And I'm just I love the work that she did. Aren't those fantastic?
That's so good.
Like they look like in-game shots. She did such a good job.
So people, yeah, be sure to check out that Instagram as well as the other places. So we've got endermama.cosplay. We'll put that in the description below as well, along with a bunch of the other links that we've looked at today. Just check out the description if there's anything you'd like to check out. Be sure to subscribe to us, of course. Any last thoughts before we wrap up, Dawn?
Um,
Anything you'd like to throw
I
in there?
I'm really flattered that you decided to have me on. I have not seen myself as anything other than like a mom and a teacher with a hobby. But I don't know, maybe I'll inspire someone else who's a mom and a teacher to take up a hobby like this. I know I was always inspired when I saw somebody like me that I thought did something cool.
Yes. And I feel like it's largely our hobbies that define us, you know. Obviously you chose a profession that lines up with your passions and what you want to do in the world, and then also you get to be a person who just like has passions outside of that and stuff that
Yeah.
you're interested. So thank you so much for joining us. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Cheers.